Hello everyone, I'm Chesty44, also known as Fly, and welcome to this Let's Play of Citizen Sleeper. Last episode, we've managed to put together a crude idea to try and save the Eye. That crude idea? Free the gardener from where he is in the Greenway, seed things into various important parts of the Eye to draw him in and protect it from the Shadow Protocol. The gardener is the only one that's been able to do anything to stop it, probably because of its sheer mass of AI. We got Fang's help in order to get access to the systems we need. For starters, we got power routing here. Implanting Greenway spores into the system here should bait the gardener into extending their protection to this vital system. To have any hope of controlling or limiting gardener's spread, core systems of the Eye need to be seeded. So that'll be spores. The garden is implanted, and now it must grow. Alright, we got two more. Said one is, there it is, life support. Alright, same thing here. Implanting spores from the Greenway into the station's life support control systems feels like madness. Is this really the solution? It's not like we have much of a choice. Now up to the hub. Rotational control. Spores from the Greenway planted here will seed a garden that the gardener will be forced to protect. At least that's the theory. As you leave, the slate peak gave you chirps insistently. You check and see a message. Found a possible entry to the core facility in the low end. Meet me there ASAP. Peak. A blinking marker gives their position as on the free spoke side of the main block. Better head to the low end. On it. There she is. They are. You arrive at the coordinates given by Peak's slate, a run-down but active corner of the low end, where a short glass-roofed alley turns off from one of the main thoroughfares. You wait in the mouth of the alley, leaning against the wall and watching the street life go by. Children hop across grids scratched into metal floor plates, playing games of their own devising, while older residents sit and talk or play tabla. It's hard to believe that all this is at threat. It seems so concrete, so real. How can some intangible protocol erase all this? As you are watching, a voice calls out to you from one of the tavla tables set up along the way. You move a little closer and recognize the sitting player immediately. Castor sits, tavla pieces and board ready in front of him, smiling at you. Sleeper! My partner has not arrived for our usual game. Come, please, take her place. He beckons you over, standing and nudging you to sit down with him. A rematch is in order. You owe me a game. Almost immediately, Castor begins the game. Everyone on the Eye knows how to play tabla. The methodical movement of the counters across their triangular points are ready fit for the rhythm of life on the ramshackle space station. I'm pretty sure this is basically backgammon. Most games begin in the same way, with each player moving with independence, focused only on achieving their optimal early game setup. There is a moment in each game where it becomes necessary to notice the other player, to anticipate the crossing of the counters across the board. A point of contact, when routine becomes negotiation and negotiation becomes conflict. As this moment arrives, the subtle shift in the texture of the interaction, Castor begins to speak. I find myself surprised by you continually, Sleeper. He looks over his glasses at you. The way you conduct yourself, for example, suggests an anxious refrain, a defensive, protective quality. But in your tabla game, he pauses to move a counter. I see only risk. What are you talking about? Risk, Sleeper. I'm talking about risk. Risk is, of course, necessary to play tabla. To move a piece is to expose it, but it should be done with calculation, with proper analysis. Then, if the piece is taken, Castor moves a counter, taking one of yours with a practice swap, placing it beside the board. It is already accounted for. But if you move forward with abandon, as if risk was just a secondary effect of action, a consequence, not its primary guide. He gestures for you to take your turn. A cause. I play my way. Indeed, indeed. That is all I seek. You move your piece. This locks you into being reactive, if you don't mind me saying so. You are responding, which means you are being led. He leans back to consider the board. This place, it mirrors you, Sleeper. It is also reactive. It was born from a crisis, the collapse of Solheim, and ever since it has been reacting without any central guiding principle. No analysis, no calculation. Just look at our refugee crisis, for example. It is all reaction, all risk-taking, and little risk calculation. At first I found the chaos enlivening, especially when trying to track its outcomes. But now I find it exhausting. It always amuses me that this place is literally spun from the rim. Below this very stack of habitation blocks is the most important control facility on the Eye. Spun from the rim. What better metaphor could you find for disorder? But why am I telling you that? That facility is precisely why you are here. He smiles an unsettlingly warm smile. You feel a shiver through your body as if something has changed in the air. What is this? No words come out of your mouth. You feel removed from yourself, watching from behind frosted glass. Your eyes dart side to side. Inertia sets in. Castor is still smiling. The risk you are planning to take here, Sleeper, is not yours to take. Castor's tone is unshifted. He speaks as if this is still some casual conversation between passing acquaintances. You are leaping towards a chaotic outcome with no respect for risk. You'll see, calculating outcomes, that's my specialty. That's why I am here. I was hired as a conduit for risk, as a collector of data that might pertain to its arrival. He removes his glasses to clean them, and you see something flicker across their surface, a shimmering stream of characters. This system, this station, is already theirs. Solheim's collapse meant a corporate fire sale. Assets changed hands. My employers, Senate-Stat, brought out the entire system, and for the past decades have been its one valid owner. He polishes his glasses diligently. But to possess this system, the H1 system, Helion, to you, well, that is a matter of risk. Of how much force, how much cost, how much conflict a clearance would take. He replaces his glasses. That risk must be calculated against a favorable outcome. In short, how much is this place worth to us? For a long time the answer was nothing. H1 could offer nothing that would warrant the risk. But the markets change, the demands shift, and Senate-Stat, we analyze, we follow, we respond. He puts his glasses back on his face. H1 is about to become the most important system in this part of the galaxy. He glances around. The lone CAN channel operating within range of 7 or so newly surveyed resource-rich systems. The frontier town that feeds the gold rush, so to speak. So, here we are. Re-evaluating the risk. Reclaiming our property. Starting up the CAN channel and clearing the way for what comes next. He sits back looking at the board. He gestures. Your move. Senate-Stat is causing the flux. You manage to force out the words. Castor looks a little surprised. Senate-Stat is acting to reclaim their property from illegal occupation. To re-establish H1 as a foremost colony of the surrogacy program. Of course, I do not need to explain myself to you, but in the role as an analyst, in my calculations, I see great promise in you, in your ability to enter systems, to shift them to your will. Not every sleeper has this capacity, I assume you know that. It truly is a wonderful happenstance of Essence ARP's technology. I imagine even they are not fully aware of it. He makes his move, claiming another of your pieces, and as you watch, you realize the inevitability of his victory. I will make you an offer. To come willingly, or come by force. The station will collapse, we can be sure of that, but your ability to work with data, well, for an analyst, that is very intriguing. He pauses to push his glasses up his nose. Very intriguing indeed. He glances around. Come with me as a collaborator or as a prisoner. Consider the risk. On one hand, almost certain death. On the other, a possible future. Analyst or not, you must see it. Speak now, Sleeper. The game is forfeit. You must see that. You are of value. You are needed. You feel a slight release in the inertia that grips you, enough to allow you to speak, to respond. You realize that you are already in Castor's hands, that you cannot move from this place if you wanted. Sleeper? You hear the familiar voice above the crowds. Sleeper, I'm here. You are unable to turn your head to see Peak, but you notice Castor's eyes following them as they come up from behind you. Then you see Castor's eyes glance down towards his hands concealed beneath the table. Sleeper! Peak comes around the front of you and waves a hand in front of your face. We were supposed to be meeting, remember? They glance at Castor. Sorry, am I interrupting something? You cannot speak. Castor shoots Peak a wide smile. Hello, you must be a friend of Sleeper. You watch one of his hands lift, close to his body, some dark shape concealed in it. A weapon. You try to scream, to shout, but Castor's attention remains partially on you, and while it does, you can do nothing. Peak glances at your static form. What's happening here, Sleeper? They put a hand on your shoulder. Are you okay? As Peak stares into your eyes, you see Castor behind, his hand lifting, the dark object unfolding. And in the split moment it does, you feel his attention shifting to Peak, shifting away from you. As you do, you feel the inertia lifting, and you know this is the only moment you will have to act. Shove. You lurch forward wildly like a sprung trap. Your head strikes Peak's chest and then carries them back into Castor. Somewhere, some digital screech is echoing through the walkway. They tumble together, and the object in Castor's hand skitters across the floor. You realize the screech is you. You get to your feet, grab Peak, and run. You run as hard as you can, the scream chasing you down the walkway as you shove through the residence, Peak dragged behind. You run from the cold grip of whatever power Castor had over you, the signals that locked you into this body of yours, that broke the connections and crawled up your spine. Eventually you stop, both you and Peak collapsing, heaving, breathing into the cold metal floor. When they are able to speak, Peak asks you to explain, and you tell them everything Castor told you. About Senetstat, about their claim on the Hellion system, the reactivation of the Can channel, the Hellion system's growing importance. It flows out of you in desperate gulps, unable to believe your own mouth as you hear these words coming back to you. All you feel is the need to push back against the cold hand on your shoulder, the vast cold eye that has turned to look at this system, the ghost limbs of corporate control that are extending their reach. Peak is quiet for a long time. Then they speak. We have to finish this, Sleeper. They meet your eye. We have to complete the seeding of the systems. We have to set Gardner free. You're right. If the choice is between Gardner and these people, I'll choose Gardner every time. Their eyes are cold and steely. I would choose anything over them. You stand together. The final control facility is here. I found it. I can take you as soon as you are ready. Time's almost up. This is the only shot you'll have. Alright, let's get into the control facility. Do what we can. Oh, this is going to take some rolls. There are powered... Let's see, the facility Peak has led you to is decaying, derelict, but they promise the core is still active. You just have to find it. There are powered terminals in the derelict part of the low end. Accessing them is dangerous, but will be faster than wandering, or we can explore. To find the core of the facility, you'll need to trace a path between Peak's backdoor entry and the derelict levels below. Well, let's hack the facility. Oh, and we'll get some cryo from it. That's into it. No, we'll continue with interface. Okay, there's a little bit. Looks like if we want to do any more... I mean, this gets us energy. Yeah, hang out with Mina. Can at least say hi to her. 1 point of energy is something. Alright. Self-repair. May as well feed the stray again. And end of the cycle. Hopefully we get good rolls so we can get in there quickly. Oh yes, those are some good rolls. And one of those. Give me a good number. That is perfect. Hack the facility. You find an old Solheim map terminal and manage to boot it back up. A skeletal map of the facility unfolds for you. You have discovered a path to the core of the facility. Time to seed Gardener's final spores. Sleeper, here! Peak calls to you from across the flickering corridor. An elevator to the core. This is it. It has been a long set of cycles hunting for a path through the derelict layers of old Solheim offices and workshops. But finally, here it is. The path down to the core. You rush over to Peak. As you do, the doors grind open, the dingy-looking elevator flickering as they do. You look at Peak, who nervously gestures for you to get in. Step in. The elevator bounces a little, but stays stable. You glance back to see Peak watching you nervously. They follow you in, sheepishly. Just a little nervous. Peak reaches over and punches a button for the lowest level, flinching a little as the doors grind closed. The elevator sets off, screeching through the floors as it does at an unsettlingly loud volume. I'd feel more comfortable if we spoke. Peak raises their voice over the nose. It's not going to be a short trip. Have you heard of Senatstadt? Maybe once. They frown. Could have been mentioned in an XPR news packet, the kind the Central Administration sent out to us. Something about market analytics, I think. They shake their head. Oh, when you've spent so much time trying to forget your past, this stuff isn't easy to dredge up. How's Esh? I was thinking more like small talk, elevator talk. She is packing. They rub their eyes. Once Esh has set her mind on something... Well, you know her now, you know what I mean. The screeching of the elevator fills the silence. Can she be persuaded to stay? I doubt it, I really do. She left her life behind to take me out of XPR, out of Hawthorne. I can't imagine her settling for just anywhere. To be honest, I can't see her letting me stay either. I guess things have changed. Back then at Hawthorne, I wasn't in a place to know what to do. I was desperate. I was ready to run. But now? Peak pauses. Now I feel done with that. Done with denying my past, my history. If I ever want to feel complete, to feel settled, don't I need to somehow resolve the person I was with the person I am now? Peak goes quiet and you do too. There are too many possible questions, too many possibilities before you. It just seems easier to get on with the task at hand and leave the consequences for later. The elevator screams to a stop and the doors ping open with a strangely cheerful beep. You glance at Peak. Time to move on. You both walk out into an atrium, still lit by some ragged-looking light panels on the ceiling, once simulating a summer sky, now degraded into a flickering blue and white tapestry of glitches. Peak crosses quickly, making a beeline for the large doors on the far side, where you can make out a fading sign in massive peeling letters. Central Control. You follow, helping them lever open the partially powered doors until the motors kick in and they spring to life, thudding open. You and Peak tumble through across the damp metal. As you stand, you are greeted by flickering lights, thousands of them. A vast cylindrical stack of servers, processors, and transmitters dominates the center of the room, its flickering LEDs reflected in the scattered puddles that surround it. Despite the decay, the warped panels and water leaks, it is still running, just as it has for decades and decades since the station was first spun up. I wonder how long it has been since anyone has been in this room. You exchange wide-eyed looks with Peak. This place is a still-living piece of history. What is this place? Peak stares. One of the central facilities of the station, the primary one for the Rim, it looks like. The heart of this place. Peak takes a handful of mulch out from a small bag. It glitters with spores. Now we seed this place. They cross to the server and start packing the mulch deep into the machinery, pushing fistfuls deep into gaps in the paneling, laying it across hardware. As you watch them doing this, you feel a tug, a thread pulling at you. You approach the vast piece of cylindrical hardware that Peak is stuffing mulch into. You run your hands across its plated metal surface and watch the lights blink in response. As you pass, you hear a whirring like a physical disk drive starting up. Lean closer. You put your face against the metal, smell the hot air venting from the hardware. Heart was the right choice of word, you think. The whirring shifts, alternating, speeding up, slowing down, and as you listen, you hear it modulate into a voice. Sleeper, you are here. For a moment you are afraid, but something in the tonality of the voice is familiar. Navigator. Another drive spins up, and another, giving the voice a richer, multitonal sound. I had forgotten what it felt to speak like this. The drives skip. There is a certain quality to it, a certain physicality. What are you doing here? The drives squawk in unison. Did you imagine the Flux, the Shadow Protocol, that they were just a problem for the people of this station? A high whining begins. They are all the more dangerous to us. I have been in hiding once more, jumping from network to network to avoid the Shadow as it eats up nodes. A low rumble. I had thought my hiding days were done. For the moment, I have found myself a safe haven here in the core. The Shadow has yet to breach this facility, although that is a temporary state of affairs. The rumble stops. My predictions do not point to good outcomes. That's why we are here. You explain to Navigator about Peak's plan, about Gardener's resistance to the Shadow, and how by seeding key systems you will protect them from its advance. The drives hum thoughtfully as you speak. A desperate plan, but appropriate given the probability of total collapse. I am not sure what will be worse from us, hiding from the erasure of the Shadow Protocol or the assimilation of Gardener. The drives pause to reset. But we owe you our freedom. I will do what I can to guide the Gardener into the systems you have seeded. It is correct to do so. Thank you. The drives squeak in affirmation. You have notable persistence, Sleeper, even with such poor probabilities of success. I will be curious to see the outcome. The drives squeal, the motors giving out. This cannot be sustained much longer. Good luck. A final sweep of affirmation, and then the drives skitter and slow to a halt. You step back from the towering cylinder, staring at this vast piece of Solheim hardware. This whole place is built from ghosts, you think, from old protocols and company hardware, from engines that drove decades of corporate expansion. Is the eye proof that they can be shifted, bent, forced into new configurations that allow for new ways of living? Or is its inevitable collapse proof that these engines of expansion can never be anything more than a corrupt foundation? Seems to depend on who you ask. Done! Peak's shout breaks your line of thought. The heat and damp should help the spores germinate quickly. If we are lucky, there is enough time for some growth before we reconnect the Greenway. They glance at you. That's it. All the facilities seeded. We either just ensured the eye's survival or stuffed a whole lot of soil into one of its most important computers. Shall we go? They start to head back towards the doors and the elevator beyond. Take one last look. You wait for a moment, following the blinking lights. You wonder what might be tucked away in such a structure, what secrets it might hold, what histories. It's an intriguing prospect, but while you watch the lights, you realize something. If the eye is to become anything more than an offshoot, a temporary structure, it must form its own history, its own stories, stronger than anything that came before. Unlocking these Solheim secrets won't do that, but the persistence, the stubborn drive to survive that is in the veins of every person in this place. That will. And that is what you are trying to save. You turn your back on the core and follow Peak back into the elevator. As you ride the car back up, Peak raises their voice over the screeching. I'm going to the Founder's Gap to finalize the connection. The moment I'm ready, I'll let you know, and we let the gardener out. The sooner the better. Peak furrows their brow. If we wait until the final cycle, it'll be too late. If you want to help speed things up, go work with the flotilla. We can't make the connection until we know they are ready to go. Peak swallows. Unleashing Gardener could affect them too if we aren't careful. And what happens then? I honestly don't know. Maybe Gardener takes over the station. Maybe they don't even react. I can't think about it any longer. You ride the rest of the way in silence. When you reach the top, you go your separate ways, but before you do, Peak embraces you, burying their face in your shoulder. You stand there together for a moment, spinning with the eye, moving relentlessly towards an unknown future. And then they let go and slip away. The pressure of their hug fading like a bruise as you begin to leave. Well, that's enough that we can do into it, I think. And with that, I am going to end this episode here. Next episode, it seems we're going to help them evacuate the eye. That's the best chance we got now. Or the best chance they got. So, we're going to do that in the next episode. This one's gone on about long enough. Till then, I am Chester44, also known as Fly. This has been a Let's Play of Citizen Sleeper, and I shall see you all next time.